All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Week 5 of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. As we dive into another week here, excited to have you with us talking Lion football. And as we do every single week, we have our special guest segment brought to you by Gateway Ford and Punch Tool leading us off this week. And it is our special guest to have on this week, one of the greats in Lion history, Mr. Robert Alford, pride of Hammond, Louisiana, pride of Southeastern, went on to the NFL. Robert, man, thank you for spending some time with us. I know we've been meaning to do this. We've had a lot of fan requests to get you on for the last 6 to 8 months, and we're getting it done today. And we're super happy to have you, Robert.
Oh, man. Hey, it's a great opportunity. I love speaking with you guys, man. Line up for life. Y'all already know. Thanks for having me.
Well, Robert, you still live in the Atlanta area, as you were telling us. You can see your helmets back there, which mean the most to you, I think. Hammond High School, Southeastern, and the Atlanta Falcons. And I mean, living down here, Atlanta's not everybody's favorite, but there's no doubt about that. I know personally, every Lion fan was keeping an eye on what you and the Falcons were doing when you were playing there on Sundays. And just talk about your life and where you are now. And we'll go from there, talking more about Lion football and your time with the Lions. But just talk about your family and what you're doing now and living in the Atlanta area.
So I've been in the Atlanta area ever since 2013 when I was drafted here. I have a boy and a girl. My son, he's 8. My daughter, she's 5. My wife, Breon, we both doing a great job as parenting, making sure they're getting like the proper things they need. But for the most part, I'm retired now. As y'all know, I'm retired. So right now, just spending that family quality time, and also outside of football, I was able to set some things up. So just staying focused upon them and making sure those stay floating the correct way.
That's awesome. Well, Robert, I think everyone that knows you knows how much you care about Southeastern. Anytime you walk into Strawberry Stadium, they see your picture up in there. They know what you mean to this program, to the city of Hammond. Because you're a Lion, you were a Falcon, you were a Cardinal for a while, but you also were a Tornado. And I know the city of Hammond means a lot to you. Just separating Southeastern, just talk about what that town meant for you growing up in the city of Hammond and Tangipahoa Parish.
Oh man, it meant a lot. Just being able to attend Southeastern, that was right there in my hometown, was major also. But just the city of Hammond, man, I will always have love for being able to grow up there, being around cousins, friends, so many memories that I had growing up as a kid. I remember going out each and every day with my cousins, with my brothers. We was always playing some type of sport. If it was playing baseball with the tennis ball, it was playing throw up tackle in the front yard. When my grandma wasn't hollering nettles or somebody started crying, to just making like little bike ramps and doing like little kid things on there. So just being able to be from Hammond and be able to make it in the league and be able to tell people in the league where I'm from, and also inspire the young people that's coming behind me, man. It's such a great deal. Not too many people get to live that dream and be able to just leave a print for those behind them. So I'm very grateful for the city of Hammond.
You started this trend really after the break in football. You were the trend of the first guy that really got some NFL chances. I think Felton Huggins was in the NFL a little bit before you, but you were there, and then that kind of led to Harlan getting in, and then you followed it up with Brian Bennett getting a chance and things like that. Just talk about how, because I think that the misconception that people have sometimes is, you got to play at the biggest school in the world to get in the NFL. You played at Southeastern, and they found you. Those scouts found you. They recognized your talent no matter where you were playing. I think the same thing goes for Harlan. The same thing goes for Cole Kelly when he was here. They find you. And just talk about how, your skills and the development that you learned at Southeastern helped you prepare for the NFL.
Yeah. First off, I just want to give thanks to Southeastern overall. The coaching staff when I first came in. A lot of people probably don't know I wasn't highly recruited out of high school. So being able to continue my talents at Southeastern was a real great deal. I was able to have some great coaches along the way. Coach Ron Roberts, Coach Lucas, everybody, man. I was able to learn. I was able to take something from each coach. First off, Coach Lucas, man, he taught me how to come in and how to just to be a college athlete, for as going in, doing the right things, how to practice, how to do those little things right. And then once Coach Rob came in, man, it was just the sky was the limit. As you know, he came in as one of those Division II AA championship coaches. So I was able to learn a lot from him and Pete and Coach Boger, who played in the league also. So just being able to have those type of people in my corner, it helped me out a lot coming into the league, because they was able to tell me those things that I needed to know to become a pro at the next level. And just to piggyback upon what you said, as far as like most people feel like they have to go to a big school just to make it. Of course, that's the dream when you're a little kid. You want to be able to go to these big time colleges that you see on TV that they're always naming. They naming this, naming that. But I was grateful to have a brother, Fred Booker, that was able to play at LSU and was able to play in the league for a couple of years, bouncing around like with practice squad. But he was always in my ear telling me, like, you don't have to go to these big schools just to continue your dreams in the NFL. If anything, those small schools would basically keep on pushing you to become a future draft pick. And I remember day one, man, when I first stepped on campus, I remember me telling some people this, man, because at the time, nobody was drafted from Southeastern. Nobody even had got a shot from Southeastern until I think it was Kevin Hughes. He was able to, he was able to get a shot in the practice squad with the Rams. So I remember since day one, man, I was always telling people, like, bro, like, I want to be the first person to get drafted from here. And I remember I used to have people like laughing in my face, like, oh man, that's not what it is. Like, most people won't be able to do it. So they really like helped my mindset to make me go out there and grind and do the little things right, to make sure that those dreams and goals that I had, that I set when I first stepped foot on campus, was going to happen.
Mark, go ahead with a question for Robert.
Well, you mentioned obviously your path to Southeastern, your path to the NFL, and a quick story I wanted to tell you. I'm not sure if I ever told you this before or not, or you heard the story, but you're going into your senior year of high school. You're at Hammond High School, and I guess you went to a Southeastern football camp. And I remember, Matt Webb, Coach Matt Webb, your defensive coordinator at the time, he and I used to always meet in the summer, have some lunch at Brady's and talk about recruiting and that sort of thing, how things are going. So we're at Brady's one day right after, I guess that day you were at camp, and we're sitting there, and he says, hey man, he goes, there's a kid at our camp. He's from Hammond High. He goes, he's the best player I have ever seen. He's going to play in the NFL. He told me that day, he goes, if Hammond High doesn't play him at corner regularly, we're going to get him. He goes, if he plays cornerback at Hammond High for any amount of time, he goes, we got no shot. He goes, he's playing wide receiver, he's doing all this, turning kicks. He said, but if he doesn't play corner, he's going to come here to play corner, he will play in the NFL. He told me that day. And that stuck out to me like a sore thumb, because, I mean, he was giddy about it. And this is going into your senior. You haven't played your senior year of high school yet. Uh-huh. And so as it plays out, obviously, your career, you end up here 5 years. Coach Rob comes in, and then obviously you're selected in the second round. I remember Matt Webb nailed it. I guess at the time you were probably 150 pounds, 160 pounds right at the time. And it's just crazy how that played out. But you talked about Fred Booker. I had a chance to know Fred when he was younger at Independence High School before he transferred to Hammond. And his dad, and so what was it like having a brother? Played at LSU, played with the Saints, to help guide you?
Man, dog, like I was like any other little kid. I always wanted to be like my big brother. So once he pursued his career as far as playing football, my mom, she didn't let me play until I was 13, but he was able to play a little younger. But of course, I was like any other little kid. I always wanted to be like my brother. So that goes back to what I was saying, like coming up, everyone around in that area wanted to go to LSU. I also wanted to go to LSU. So just having an older brother that was able to do these things that I wanted to do and be able to tell me the ins and outs of the game and the red flags, don't do this, don't do that, was very major for me. Because I feel like most kids don't have that type of leadership or that type of footprint to follow. So being able to have a brother that was able to play in the biggest of college games, was able to play in the NFL in some games, it was real major, man. And I'm blessed to have someone in my corner coming up.
Let's go back, quickly to Southeastern. I guess it's your junior year. Would have been 2010. You guys are getting ready to play Tulane, I guess, to open up the year. And I think right that week or maybe right before, you had an injury. Talk about that. You ended up missing, I think, that entire year. Is that right? 2010. And I guess in a weird way, you got that red shirt your back, and then you get a chance to play under Ron Roberts. Talk about how that had an impact on your career moving forward.
At the time, of course, like any other player, man, I was set out to prove something, and I was hit with a devastating injury. It was like nerve damage. I want to say it was in my left shoulder. We thought it was something that was just temporary, but eventually it was something that prolonged to the end of the season. So I missed that season. I was able to gray shirt, but hindsight, just looking back on it, man, I feel like it was just a blessing from God. Even though at the time I felt like it was an injury that I didn't want to happen. But just looking back at it, hindsight, man, and being able to be able to stay back for my fifth year and being under Coach Rob, like I said, man, I learned so much from Coach Rob and the coaching staff, not taking nothing from Coach Webb and Coach Lucas, because I learned something from everyone. But I learned even more from Coach Ron Roberts, because he was able to bring in Petito from Alabama, Boger, who played in the league, like I said. So I was able to learn from pretty much people that was at the highest level, far as coaching at Alabama and also playing in the NFL. So I learned so much from that coaching staff. So shoot, I was grateful just to have that opportunity. But at the time, yeah, I didn't want it to happen, because I had my eyes set up on the dream, and I just felt like at the time when that injury happened that it pretty much like derailed my dream, but it really didn't.
Can you talk about when Coach Roberts came in? You had the chance to kind of play under these coaches, like guys that are Coach Roberts is at Florida, Coach Pete Golding's at Ole Miss, Carl Scott's in the NFL. I mean, you were with those three guys, and there were obviously other defensive coaches on that staff that were impactful. But just getting the chance to look back and say, man, I was able to practice and play under those three guys for an entire year, and look and see what they've become with their coaching careers. Just expand a little more on that and what maybe those three individual coaches. You talked about Coach Roberts. We talked about Coach Scott and what Coach Golding may have meant to you that one year you played with them at Southeastern.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Coach Scott, man, funny guy, bro. Real funny, laid back guy, man. I love Coach Scott. He always brought the energy, man, every day. For as practicing, he was able to tell me some things, even though I think at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Coach Scott was the linebackers coach.
Right, he was.
Yeah, so he was able to give me some little nuggets that stick with me, that helped me out throughout my career also. But man, Coach Pete Golden, bro, he knew so much stuff, man, from the defensive standpoint, because he was the defensive coordinator. So he brought a lot of attitude to the team, and pretty much showed you, put you in the right position to make plays or whatnot. As y'all know, Pete is from Hammond, also where I'm from. So he was a mastermind, man, at in the defensive coordinator spot. So just to see those guys, like y'all see now, they're coaching in the college ranks, they're coaching in the NFL. It just shows you the type of coaches I was blessed to be around throughout my years at Southeastern. So yeah, they definitely helped me out a lot.
You go to Atlanta. You're working with Dan Quinn was there when you were drafted, correct? He was the head coach with the Falcons.
Arthur
Mike Smith was still there. Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you played in Atlanta. You have a great career. and you get to play in that Super Bowl. Just talk about that whole year for us. I know that was special for you, and you kind of have this picture moment that you can put on your wall of you intercepting Tom Brady and taking it back. I know the game didn't end the way y'all wanted it to, but just talk about that whole year and what that experience was like. I mean, and Mark, you maybe can tell me this. Robert's the only line ever played in a Super Bowl. Is that right?
Yeah, in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you were a Tom Brady comeback away from being MVP. I mean, I don't think there's any question you would have been, and had you guys hung on and won it. But yeah, just talk about that whole experience. I mean, obviously every kid grows up wanting to play in the Super Bowl, but not only do you play in it, but you impact in the Super Bowl, and you intercept perhaps the greatest player in the history of NFL football, and Tom Brady. You pick 60, might have the iconic photo. I think everybody's seen it with him, laying on the ground, you running by him. And how surreal was that? Just talk about that entire experience and what it meant to you.
Oh man, just being in the Super Bowl, man, was an eye opening. There's so many Hall of Famers that wasn't able to even just experience that taste of the Super Bowl. So just being able to play in the Super Bowl I was grateful for it. But that whole experience, man, was real nice. The week leading up to it, you have all these type of different experiences, able to talk to the media. You have guys coming there. I don't know if y'all might have seen. It's like this little guy that goes around just be doing like little crazy stuff, doing tricks. So you getting that every day, like right after practice. So yeah, so you able to walk off the field, like you'll go to practice and probably have the coaches yell at you like for a couple of hours while you watching film, but then after that, it's like you just enjoying like the experience throughout the week. So yeah, man, leading up to the game, man, being able to just go out there and just see all of the fans and see like the Super Bowl number that you were playing in, man, was very like surreal. They had celebrities everywhere. So you try to just stay in the moment at the time. So I was able to like to have a great game. Like you said, I was able to pick off one, arguably, in my book, one of the top quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. But that play, man, we went over that play, I want to say like every day at practice. And I was telling my teammates, I'm like, bro, if this play present itself, like I'm going to pick it off, like because throughout that whole year, I had a coach. My DB coach was Mark Manuel, and his number one thing he always stressed to us as DBs is you pick out 2 plays on the film, and if that play present itself, you got to show up. You got to show up, and you got to make a play on it. So that play was able to come in fruition and actually happen. So once I seen Edelman, like that whole week, we already knew every time Edelman was inside, because if you just look out the whole year, he was always inside. He always had an option route or he had a deep over. Anytime Edelman was on the outside, he always motioned in. Very rarely that he'll stay outside. Plus in the 3-by-1, he always motioned into that bunch area. And if he did stay outside, he was either running something inside. It was like an 85% chance he was always running a slant or a dig, something inside, because he wasn't like a real tall guy. So when that play actually happened, when he motioned down, man, I already knew what was coming. I pretty much, I'm pretty sure y'all probably seen it, was able to watch it.
Oh yeah, a few times.
Like you can see that I ain't even following.
It'll be playing over this interview.
Yeah, soon as he struck in, like what they call it is a follow route. Soon as he struck in, I see my guy Brian Poole, 34. He was on Amendola. Amendola done a follow route. I just stepped in front of him because I already knew what was coming. I knew what Brady was looking for. I'm telling you, like he never on film, he never looked at Edelman. Every time they motioned to it was always Amendola. So when that play presented itself, I stepped up, like Coach said. Like that's what I was saying when I went to the sideline. You said step up. I stepped up. So
let me ask you real quick on that. You break the huddle, you see it, you see the look that they're giving you. Here it comes. So when you're aligning defensively, you got to be careful not to tip off that you know what's coming.
Right.
So do you have to kind of bait him into making sure he throws the ball in that spot so you can jump it? I mean, is that something you have to do as a DB?
Yeah. So the main thing, like you want to be lined up, head up to him. You don't want to give it away at all. So
that right?
Yeah. So really, what it was just a form of ID, so that Brady would know, like, oh yeah, we're in cover one, we're in man. So once he seen me go down and everyone else bumped over, he already knew, oh yeah, we're in man. And like I said, for us, we went through that play so much during practice. We knew, like, anytime Edelman motion down to this position, this is what he's running. And as soon as I seen him strike in, I already knew the follow route was coming off of it. So but most definitely, like, you don't want to hide it. But most of the time, they pretty much not even looking at us too much. They looking at the safeties. So it was on the safety, Keanu Neal and Allen, to pretty much not tip it off, which they didn't tip it off. They done a great job, man. If you go back and just watch like the wide copy of the coach's film, they done a great job at it. So yeah, I made the play, but it was also us as a collective unit in the back end, not tipping it off, like you said, not tipping it off to Tom Brady, because, like I said, he's arguably one of the greats to ever play. So all it takes for him to see one little tip off, and he would have just went up. He would have went off of. I think he would have threw it to Edelman.
It just goes to show you, youngsters at home. Robert Alford from Hammond, Louisiana, film study, guys. That's what happens when your preparation leads to a chance to make great moments and big time moments.
Right.
I got two more for you, and I'll give it to Mark for the last one. But Robert, you played in Atlanta for most of your career. What did it mean to you to know that, hey, because you're in the Saints division, you're going to play at least one game in the Superdome every year, close to where you're from, for your family and friends to get to come? Speak about that for me. And then lastly, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2018 in the SLU Hall of Fame. You play a career in the NFL, you play a career at Southeastern, but for that recognition later by the people that, care the most for you at Hammond to put you in the school's Hall of Fame forever. Just talk about, what that meant to you, and then obviously getting a chance to play in New Orleans every single season because of the divisional round.
Oh man, to be able to play against New Orleans was very big.
Your first game was against the Saints,
right?
You picked off Drew Brees. Drew Brees. Talk about Hall of Famers. And
right.
Go ahead.
Right. So yeah, man, just being able to play them twice a year, like you said. Like I'm from Hammond, so it was just a skip and a hop for the family to be able to come and see me play. I was grateful for it, just to be able to play them. I did grow up being a Saints fan. So once I was drafted to Atlanta, of course I got a lot of people in my ear. Oh man, how can you go to Atlanta? How can you do this? I'm like, hey, I didn't choose to go to Atlanta. This just that picked me. I was like, the Saints could have got me too. Like, nobody got me. So being able to play them and being able to for the family to come and see me twice a year was real big. I was grateful for it. Of course, like during the game day, the game week, it wasn't to my satisfaction because I had to buy so many tickets. Everybody in your ear, hey, I want to go to the game, I want to go to this. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to key in and stay locked in and trying to go out here and just make plays and do my job. But just for the family to be able to come and see me, man, it was real nice knowing that I was able to come back home to New Orleans and able to play against a team that passed up on me, because like I said, I was always a Saints fan. So of course I wanted to play for the Saints, but there was also another chip that was added to my shoulder. So that week, like I said, from the family being in my ear asking for tickets, I was trying to be locked in because I had something to prove to the Saints every time I play them. So, and just to go to your next question, to be able to be elected into the Southeastern's Hall of Fame, it's real great. Like I said, like Southeastern is right there in my hometown. So the kids that's behind me, that's at Hammond High, or the kids just around the Hammond area, they're able to go over there and just see my picture hanging there. Just know, like, oh, one day I'll be Robert Alford, man. that's real major for me because I always wanted to be that guy that some way down the road to set a different trend for those kids behind me. And I think that by them electing me into the Hall of Fame for Southeastern, it gave the kids even more hope that they could one day be me or even surpass me and be even greater.
Awesome. Mark, go ahead with anything.
Yeah, a couple things. Well, touching on that, you talk about Southeastern. I guess the way college football is trending now, with NIL, transfer portal, guys can come and go pretty much as they want. They're getting paid to play now. And you're a rare bird in a sense that you came to Southeastern out of high school. You came the hard way because I think you had to sit out your first year. You were here 5 years. You had a season-ending injury you had to go through. You had to go through a coaching change. You were here 5 years of your blood, sweat, and tears in your hometown. Play in front of your family. You graduate. You get your degree. You're drafted in the second round. Deion Sanders calls your name in the draft, and you go on and play. And so you live the entire Southeastern experience, not only from growing up here in Hammond, knowing what Southeastern is, but you went to school here. You're here 5 years. You played here. That's got to mean a little bit more, I think. Guys that you kind of come and go, bounce in and out of programs now. Just talk about the fact that you were able to just grow up here and experience it.
Yeah, man. Bro, like I love it. I had a god brother, Duke Adams. He was able to go to Southeast. So when I was in high school playing, I remember like leaving practice and trying to get over here to Southeast and trying to come and see them play. So just being able to experience that, man, was real big for me. Not knowing that one day I would be wearing that green and white and gold was just a blessing in disguise. The portal like they have now. People always ask me, "Hey, man, if the portal was still going was up when you was going, like, would you have transfer?" I said, "No, I wouldn't," because, like I said, like I always had this role model in my older brother that always told me you can make it from anywhere. And I wanted, like I said, I wanted to set a different trend than the normal. Like I wanted kids to know like you can go to small schools and actually make it. You don't have to go to big time SEC schools. Most of those guys, they don't even make it from there. So you have the same equal opportunity to make it from here. If anything, it should make you grind even more. So I was grateful to just spend my career at Southeastern because I felt like it kept the hunger inside of me and kept that chip on my shoulder. Like I said, I always, since day one, said that I wanted to be the first one to get drafted from this university. So that was something that I was working towards each and every day, each and every week, each and every month to uphold. Because first things first, like you always got to be true to yourself. So you got to go out there, you got to grind each and every day, because if you want this dream to happen, it's on you to make that dream become reality. So man, I was grateful, man, just to have that opportunity to be at Southeastern and just represent for Southeastern and Hammond High School that was in the same area was even more bigger because I feel like it broadened everything. Like it shows the kids that, oh, Robbie Alford went right here to Hammond and went to Southeastern right here in Hammond and made it, you know what I'm saying? And made it to the Atlanta Falcons and being drafted in the second round. So I just felt like my story and just a whole, man, it made the story even more believable. Like it made it more reach that you can reach it. Like it's not somewhere outlandish that you can't reach it. Like this is something that you can literally touch and feel that's right there in your hand. So yeah, man, I was grateful for it, man. All glory to God, man. Like it's a great story, but he's the one that needs to be praised, man.
Well, that's the reason we wanted to have you on, because I've always felt your story is one of the all-time great stories that needs to be told in Southeastern history, just because of being from here, raised in Hammond High, going the hard way, getting here, and again going through everything you went through, and to have success in the NFL. I think it's just a tremendous story that we wanted to tell, and that's why we wanted to have you on. And real quick, Robbie may have something else, but you get a chance to watch Southeastern now, under Frank Selfo. They've had some success, several playoff appearances, a little bit of a tough struggle here early in this season, but I think things will get on track here as the season goes on. Just kind of what are you seeing, from afar in Atlanta of this current Southeastern football program?
Yeah, I stay in touch with Coach Frank Selfo. Most people probably wouldn't believe it, but when I first was coming out for the draft, you have these little visits that you have to fly to and talk to the coaches. So I was able to meet Frank Selfo when he was with Jacksonville.
Okay.
And then when I got drafted by Atlanta, his brother Chris Selfo was coaching there. So pretty much the Selfos, I pretty much was already like in the loop with them. So when Southeastern made that move to bring him in, man, I've been talking to him all the time. Me and Frank always texting or calling, just to see what's going on or what I see or whatnot. But yeah, like you said, like the season is not like how they want it right now, but it's all about the back end. Once you get to the middle or the back end, it's when the team needs to start clicking and turning on. And just for me watching from afar, I feel they have a lot of talent there. So if anybody or any team can turn it around, Frank can turn it around, and Southeastern can become above 500. And I feel like we're gonna make the playoffs this year. But it just takes the team going out there each and every day and being the best version of themselves. And I feel like the best is yet to come, and I feel like the future is bright for those guys.
Well, I love the fact that you said we. I love that. That's all.
Yeah. Awesome job, Robert. The two players that were drafted in the NFL out of Southeastern in the recent past were you and Harlan, both Tangipahoa Hope kids, both went to Southeastern. Obviously, you had a longer career than Harlan in the NFL, but y'all both were the two players that got drafted. But you, Kentwood, Hammond, Southeastern, went on.
And Kevin Hughes was the other that played a couple of games in the NFL. So 3 Tangipahoa Parish.
Yeah,
kids,
exactly. Exactly. Pretty special. And now Carlos Washington, who is a running back here in 2022, he's been playing off and on with Atlanta a little bit here and there. So a lot of connections to the Falcons for Southeastern fans. So, Robert, we truly appreciate you coming on, man. It means a lot that you visit with us today. We always love talking to you, and we appreciate it. We hope you have a great rest of your year with your family and watching them grow and enjoying sitting back and watching the football season now that you're retired.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me, man.
All right,
and if we make the playoffs, we may check back in with you later.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna make sure I put it down on my calendar because we definitely gonna make the playoffs. So
we will do that.
Go ahead and
all right. Robert Alford, former Lion great, Hall of Famer, former quarterback for the Lions and the Atlanta Falcons and Arizona Cardinals. Robert taking part in our interview segment this week. We'll be back to talk more about the Lions opponent this week, Tarleton State, after this break. This is the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. All right, welcome back to the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. I want to thank our special guest of the week, brought to you by Gateway Ford of Ponchatoula, Robert Alford, the former Lion great defensive back or corner, really. He went on, as you mentioned, to play for the Atlanta Falcons and the Arizona Cardinals. He is now retired, lives in Atlanta, but as you can hear, Mark, he has a close eye on what happens at Hammond with the Lions and keeps very much up to date with the program, follows it along, and you just talk to Robert, and I haven't personally spoken to Robert in probably about 6 or 7 years now, since I spoke to him when he came back for a home game, he's just really impressive to talk to on his love of this place and the people here and the community of Hammond, and he's a Lion for life for sure.
Always great to catch up with Robert. Certainly he's Lion through and through. He's Hammond, America through and through, and grew up in this community. His family, his brothers, obviously Duke Adams played here at Southeastern. Fred Booker, of course, played at Hammond High and LSU. And just to see his growth as not only a football player, a student, but also as a human being and certainly a family man, raising 2 young kids, and his priorities are in the right place. Obviously, you got that sense from him, and you got that sense of pride. Really us asking him to join us here on this podcast. And just great to catch up with him and reminisce and about some old times, talk some football, and we'll have him back on. Hopefully, maybe talk playoffs later in the year if we can get this ship turned around here, which I think we will. We'll talk about it here in a minute. But great to have Robert with us, and our hats off to him.
Yeah, really cool to listen to him break down that Brady play in the Super Bowl and talk about what went into that during the week. And I thought you hit a great nail on the head. Like younger guys, like man, watching tape is what it's all about. It's how you get better, and that's obviously something that I'll be honest. I know we recorded the interview with Robert earlier today, but I showed my sons. I said, "Man, I just talked to this guy," and they were too young for they weren't even born barely when Robert played here. Actually, neither one of them were born when Robert played here, so they don't really have familiarity with him. But I said, "Look, I just talked to this guy," and they said he intercepted Tom Brady, and they just couldn't believe it. Like they thought that was so cool. So he'll have that for the rest of his life, and that'll be something I think. Listen, no one here in this area was rooting for Atlanta to win that Super Bowl, but there might have been a few that were kind of rooting for it because they wanted Robert to win that ring. And I'm sure there's Lion fans that hopped up and cheered when he picked that 6 against Brady. So I don't know, against Brady, people might have been rooting for the Falcons more than you think, but that's a special moment for Robert and a special moment for the Lion fans. And I think I mentioned this before the USM game, Mark, out on our first podcast week, talking about the last time the Lions had played USM before. This past weekend was in 2011, and you'd see the headline in your newspaper behind you. But that wide receiver that USM had was like all world. People thought he was unstoppable. And I remember Robert, who still had one more year to play after that, kind of shut him down that day. And so, that was a really impressive. I remember he just totally shut the guy down. And I feel like there was some other guys that were good players in 2012 that he really shut down as well, that, really showed his ability. And one of the things that I think Ron Roberts did a great job of in 2012 was they highlighted Robert more. If you remember, Robert played a little offense, Mark, in that year, and he returned punts. And it was the punt. Yeah, it was the punt return against Lamar that kind of changed the game. Lions were kind of it was a rainy afternoon game. It rained most of the game. Lion offense was still trying to figure it out. What was the running back? Murray. We had a running back that got hurt in the first quarter of that game, hurt his knee. And
for us,
I had to go back.
That was I can pull it up here in a second. I'll tell you in a minute. But that was great.
It was a game the Lions were kind of sputtering in offensively, and I think they were up maybe 3 or 6 points at the time. And he had this huge punt return, and it kind of springed the game, and the Lions just kind of steamrolled him from there and ended up having a nice decisive win on the road at Lamar, following up that big McNeese upset. So that's always the hardest game to come back from when you have that big rivalry upset, and then you got to go do it on the road next week. I remember that punt return just being so crucial in that game and how it played out.
Yeah, I think he had a couple returns, and he had an interception in that game as well. That was probably one of his better individual performances. But really, there was nobody he didn't shut down. Really, in his whole career. I mean, even you go back to his freshman year, Dexter McCluster of Ole Miss, he did a great job on him, and every time Missouri, when he played Missouri, everybody he was matched up with, he tended to win those battles, and that's why he was a second-round pick. I mean, it was pretty obvious, and it's good to catch up with him, talk ball. I know there's a lot of things that we didn't scratch the surface with him in terms of an interview. We could have talked for another hour and gotten into a lot more detail, but really just to talk football, to talk X's and O's. And I think that's something, maybe another podcast later on, we can come back and maybe do some more chalk talk type stuff with him, because, you can tell, obviously he took a little bit of every coach that he played for. Mike Lucas, he talked about Mike Lucas. And, for all of his issues here, trying to get this program turned around, Coach Lucas was a guy who was a great developer of human beings. And you saw that with Robert, his evolution from when he got here to, he passed him over to Ron Roberts.
I think that's a good point, Mark. And, listen, Mike Lucas struggled to have the production on the field that he wanted. Obviously, the 6-5 year in 2009 was his best year. Had a good team in 2010, but just kind of couldn't seem to. They lost a ton of close games, had a bunch of injuries. But the success of Ron Roberts in 12 and 13, when Ron Roberts reeled off 5 wins at the end of the season, was it 5 wins? I think that was
5 and 6 or 5 and 7.
And 6. And they lost their first. They lost
the
their
UAB
first
loss, right?
Yeah, I think they won their last 3 conference games.
You start off 0-3, beat McNeese, Lamar. I think
you lost to UAB.
UAB might have been right after that. Then you had SFA, Northwestern State. Sam Houston was a 70-0 loss. That was the one loss. Then UCA, and then you had SFA and Nichols to close the season, and went 5-2 in the league, 5 and 6 overall that year.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the success at the end of the players that were developed at the end of the 2012 year to kind of buy in, and then a lot of the success of 2013 had a lot of ties to Mike Lucas players. I mean, a lot of Mike Lucas recruited guys played big roles in 2013 and in 2012. But obviously the conference championship, a lot of those kids were recruited by Mike Lucas. So, they knew how to find players. And, Mike Lucas has credit for putting Robert in the NFL, has credit for Kevin Hughes in the NFL. Really some kids that, Simi Yarbrough. I mean, there was tons of guys, that stood out here.
You got Brandon Collins, Corey Theodore. He signed Drew Lucas. He signed all those guys. Yeah, exactly. And so Caleb Muse. I mean, all those guys he brought in and developed. And again, there were challenges. And let's face it, you're coming off of. You brought football back. You had not COVID, Katrina. So you had that disruption of basically the landscape, and then you're fighting established programs in McNeese who were still rolling strong at that time, and Northwestern State was still on a pretty good trajectory as well. So you had a lot of battles you had to fight, and it really took that 2013 season. I know we're going to talk about South Dakota State coming up here in a moment because we just finished playing them this weekend, but you go back to that 2012 game, and I had mentioned this. I was on a podcast. Hopefully those guys are watching tonight. But I was on a Jack's Illustrated podcast last week, kind of talking about the 2012 game was kind of a springboard to 2013, which was a springboard to the playoffs. And really what I was pointing to was got off to an 0-3 start in 2012. And it was basically rock bottom. And if you remember, Ron Roberts literally tried to run players off. I mean, he had a lot of holdover players, obviously, and he was trying to figure out who was on the bus and who wasn't. And practice that week leading up to it, I know I went out to watch practice leading up to South Dakota State coming in. And but I'm telling you, it was like boot camp. And you had a couple of players quit, a couple of notable players that left the program, and then you had some that didn't quit. So those guys that didn't quit was the foundation of your offensive line, your Gaston Gabriels, your Paul Rapolos that developed leadership. And all of a sudden, here comes South Dakota State, and they were literally at rock bottom. And you kind of hang in that ball game. It's 13-7 third quarter. You lose 31-14. But from there, here comes McNeese. You had the Mata Mueller, the fake punt, turned everything around. And that was basically I guess the rebound and rebirth of Southeastern football as we know it today.
Isn't that amazing, though? I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years. You've been doing it for 20, following this program. It's amazing. You look back and, we've been doing it long enough. We can see these things, but there were those moments that changed the course of history for the good for this program, and you mentioned the Mata Mueller play and the Greg Stevens design of the 2-point conversion, to the tight end.
Go back to Jenkins.
Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah.
that ended up being a 5-2 Southland Conference team that year. And that springboarded into the future, right? And improve the program. Chase and Virgil's comeback against Villanova. Mm-hmm. Coach Selfa was was trending up for sure, but that comeback against Villanova, that kind of maybe had a springboard into the future. The Southern Illinois game springboarded Cole Kelly into, I'll never let anybody tell me differently that Cole Kelly's fall 2021 season was way better than if you took his 7 games. He only played 7 games in 2021 spring, but you took the first 7 games of 2021 spring or fall, it was a way better year. And he didn't win the Peyton that year, I think, for some reasons because he'd won it already and things like that. But those things are kind of all these. The Southern Illinois game, I felt like springboarded Cole into this incredible year of 2021, and those things are real. And I think a lot of programs can find things in their past that carried them to another level in their success.
Well, the quarterback on that Southern Illinois team is Stone Labanowitz, who was in town this weekend with FCS Nation and the Alex's Lemonade, Northwest Mutual. It's a cancer research for children cause that they were in town for South Dakota State game. I was talking to Stone during the tailgate, and he couldn't stop talking about Cole Kelly in that game. He said he was probably the one game he'll take with him the rest of his life, the most fun game he's ever played in. It was back and forth. He said they were geared up all week of practice, saying you got to score every possession. And he goes, the fact that I was in that game, able to play against Cole Kelly, it was just something that, he still marvels at and talks about to this day. So, that ball game, even though Southeastern didn't make the playoffs, was, definitely a springboard into the following 2 years, actually. And Cole's 2020 season was outstanding, but the 21 season, again, you can argue, but the bottom line was Barry was going to get.
Even on a smaller note, Mark, you talk about the Villanova game. I know you didn't go to this trip, but when I went up there and watched the Lions dismantle Central Arkansas, who was number 4 in the country, I think, at the time, that was a springboard. That, they had lost to UIW, they had lost to McNeese, they were kind of teetering there, and they would reel off. I think it was 4 games in a row to end the season, and finish 7-4, and that got them to the playoffs.
Nichols loss in there,
yeah. They had lost to Bethune. I think everyone felt like the Bethune-Cookman game that was canceled would have been a win for Southeastern, so they kind of gained the benefit of the doubt of that last game. But anyways, that's we're getting off topic here a little bit. But Mark, let's jump into this Jack Rebbe.
Yeah,
we'll jump into this Jack's game. Pretty ugly. I don't think anyone really realistically sat here and thought that, we all were here when the Lions beat UIW in 2022, who I saw that Jack's team on Saturday. They're good. They're really, really good. But, man, that UIW team, personnel-wise, looked just as good. And their coach that was coaching that UIW team is doing great things at Texas State, all that kind of stuff. Like, they were well coached. And the Lions beat them. So anything's possible in those games. But, you were just trying to come out of that game looking like, hey, look, if we lose, you want to be in the game in the fourth quarter and give yourself a chance and see what happens. And that was probably the furthest thing from what actually happened this past Saturday.
Well, yeah, I've had all weekend to think about it. Obviously Saturday night when it's raw, what happened. And because you're deep down, that it's possible that an outcome like that was a possibility because you're playing the number 1 team in the country, but you think your program is beyond being shut out by a national power. At least you ought to be able to score some points and make the thing competitive into the second half. And and again, they pull away late. You can accept that 41-0. You feel like you're kind of back where you started. A few years ago when you lose a game like that. But
the thing that's disconcerting to me is I watched UIW just play them 2 weeks before, and up there in Brookings,
Yeah, UIW has some offensive weapons. You got a veteran signal caller who can throw the football. They hit some big plays. They didn't stop them either. Okay, matter of fact, Southeastern defended South Dakota State better than UIW did.
Yeah, I'm talking about the overall outcome.
The closer game.
UIW didn't walk away saying, "Man, we were just dominated today." They lost.
No, right.
They lost decisively.
I guess what I'm getting at is
this is kind of dominated.
Well, let's face it. This is we'll talk about it, but this is a Southeastern offense that is trying to learn how to crawl and then walk and then run, and it's basically a new system under a new coordinator, and you don't have maybe quite all the pieces in place offensively that you want to do all the things that you want. And you ran up against the wrong kind of defense. And that's kind of what I was getting to with my comments. South Dakota State, they're back-to-back national champions for a reason. They got a lot of pieces back, even though they graduated a lot of players. But you got guys that are program guys. And they are maybe, I got to think about it, but probably the most well-coached football team in my 20 years of doing Southeastern radio. An opponent the Southeastern's play. They're the most well-coached football team. You watch them defensively, and one of the benefits of the way Southeastern broadcasts the ESPN Plus broadcast, you kind of get that all 11 look where the camera angle is. So you kind of see how they line up, and of course, it's what you see from the press box. When you go back and watch it, they do such a great job in alignment. And playing leverage. They understand leverage. And defense is basically math. I mean, it's divide the field up, and it's where you place your players, where your strength is versus a wide side. Basically it's they do a great job in not getting out leveraged on the football field. Not only that, they've got big, long defensive linemen that are physical, and they're tough. They don't stay blocked very long. They have linebackers that can run. They have two very physical corners who can really get in your grill of a wide receiver, and they can play the run. Their safeties come downhill. So if you're a primarily running football team with not a lot of options in the passing game that you can execute, you're in for a long night. It's a bad matchup for Southeastern. So I guess what I'm saying is UIW matches up better with them as far as what they can do offensively. I thought Southeastern defended very well, honestly. I mean, you take away, and of course, we talk about what we call loser stats. When you lose, you always look for, well, if we wouldn't have done this, or we wouldn't have done this, and we look back at 4 or 5 runs by number 20, the guy that looked like Zach Zinner, we're calling Force Field on the radio broadcast, who had a career night, and is something nobody expected because we handled the other guy pretty well. We shut down the quarterback, Gronowski, the reigning Peyton Award winner, who did virtually nothing. He had a couple of running plays, but defended the pass very well. He wasn't accurate.
The best pass was called back. The touchdown pass was called back.
Yeah, right. But other than that play, really defended him pretty well. I mean, they had a couple of drops in there, but he wasn't accurate. Ball didn't come out of his hand well. He probably had the worst game of his life, I would think. So you going into that game, you feel like if you can defend him that way, you got a chance to win. And then we shut down their star, Amar Johnson. We didn't shut him down, but he had the one touchdown. But you held him reasonably in check, And then here comes Voorhees, who, and again, he's in the game. You kind of lose him because you don't expect him to be the centerpiece. So he kind of hides in there, like Zach Zinner did, and he hits the hole full speed and he starts pinballing around. Now, I will say this, and again, not to make excuses, but there was an obvious hold on the 80-yard run. There was a crackback block that wasn't called at the point of attack on one of his other touchdown runs. 2 of his touchdown runs should have been called back. They weren't. I mean, it didn't happen. The officials let him play. So you can't argue with that. I'm sure we got away with some stuff as well. But there were a couple of penalties that I know the punt return, there was a hole or a block in the back that wasn't called, point of attack. So, but they, bottom line is it doesn't matter. It wasn't going to make a difference. But the bottom line is we didn't tackle him. And he ran for, 180 yards or whatever it was on like 5 or 6 carries. You take those 5 plays out, they're, barely 300 yards. maybe, or not, or under 300 yards, probably 270, whatever it was, and that's pretty good defense against the national, two-time national champion. Now we mounted no offense. We banged out a few first downs, had a couple of trips in the red zone, didn't score, missed two field goals. We'll talk about the why there coming up, but I think if the offense is a little better, if you have some options in the passing game that you can exploit, that game's probably closer. Maybe you get a call here or there. Maybe you got a chance in the fourth quarter. But as it was, they were as good as advertised and came in here and won 41-0.
Yeah, I think the thing that you go back and kind of watch the game. We don't call plays. We don't run plays to our strength sometimes. We kind of have situations where we're calling things offensively, and it's kind of just like it's almost like we call it to call it sometimes. And maybe that's because of the personnel groupings, or we're not doing assignments right. I don't know. Yeah, but there's just not a lot of there's no flow with it. It's just kind of like, let's just try this out and see if it works. And that's kind of been the quarterback thing to me this year to some extent. Like we played 3 quarterbacks in 4 games, and you had this Tanner Murray kid who's no one had seen coming into the year because he was a JC transfer, and you had Eli coming back, and you had the Stewart young man from Alabama State who come in. So you feel like that. What I didn't get, it was just interesting to me how Eli gets hurt in the Eastern Washington game. Murray had kind of come in some really key positions, especially in the USM game, which was, and then I know they wanted to try a change of pace because he's more of a runner, but then you kind of
but he's really not. I mean, that's, and again, not to cut you off, but
yeah,
since you brought that up.
But even the mop-up time against USM, and the USM mop-up time, which is basically the entire fourth quarter, they were running him out there. And they kind of throw the Stewart kid at the end of the Eastern Washington game, and they start him. Kind of has feels of the whole Clement debacle last year, where we just really didn't know what was going to happen. And I just wish we had some more consistency with that, And, I get the coaches are trying to get the spark going because the offense has struggled. But to me, I think players do their best when they're comfortable and they have a belief in what's going on. And if you're just going to stick with a guy, like if you I don't know.
To me, play devil's.
Yeah.
Well, to play devil's advocate, and again, we're not in the meeting rooms. We're not. Yeah. We're not in the coach's office. We're not privy to all the conversations. We don't know the person. I do. I go to practice. Go to probably about 75-80% of camp and try to get out there once a week during the week. But so I see a lot what goes on, but you don't really know what goes on because you're not in the meetings. You don't know. There's a lot of things we'll never know. Okay. Because, we shouldn't, and those are things that are in house. So I don't know the privy of some things that may be a reason why certain things go the way they go, but to play devil's advocate, they probably feel like they had a good plan. They probably feel like they had a good play call that maybe just wasn't executed. And that goes back to why not? Why wasn't it executed? Why are they continuing to have breakdowns, run the wrong routes, overthrow, timing's off? Sometimes, you have a good plan and you go out there and you just can't execute it. But I guess, it is what it is. I mean, it's a struggling offense. But again, you got a new coordinator who's got his own stamp on things, and you play Tulane to start the season, who's pretty good on defense relative to Southeastern, even though they've given up some points this fall. But compared to Southeastern, they have good personnel. Probably the second best defensive team Southeastern's played. Southern Miss is a mess, but they have talent. You move the football against them, you just didn't score. And then Eastern Washington, you did enough against the team that's not very good on defense. They had some injuries coming in, but you outscore them. You win that game. You run the ball well. Passing game still iffy. And then you got exposed against the best team in the country. and South Dakota State. So you don't really know where you are yet. This team still hasn't gotten into the meat of the schedule against opponents that are more like them. I think the best comparison is Eastern Washington. I think more of the Southland Conference is going to be similar to them. I think Tarleton's going to be that way this week. I think, as we talk about them, I think that's the game Southeastern can go in there and win. A very winnable football game. It's on the road and should be a tough environment, but I think that's a really good matchup for Southeastern. So I think fans have to be patient, let the season play out before you start passing judgment, because, again, the schedule, it's the fourth toughest schedule in the country based on all the data that I've seen, and just read something this week that's ranked fourth. So we know how tough it was. We didn't expect this team to be any better than 1-3 coming out of the first four. You thought you may have an outside chance of upsetting Southern Miss, and you're 2-2 or 2-2 coming out of the first four. And then you got to go to Tarleton. So if you come out of Tarleton with a win, you're 2-3. You're right where you kind of hope to be, honestly. So I think we've got to be a little bit patient and just let this thing play out.
I think that's a good way to look at it, Mark. You mentioned the defense played well, but we'll put this one behind us. Moving on, Tarleton State this week. You mentioned it. Texans, a team who came into Strawberry Stadium, and Lions kind of handed them the game last year. I think Coach Selfo kind of mentioned that this week, turned it over. First play of the game was pick six, turned it over, missed some field goals, missed an extra point, I believe, in the game.
Yeah.
Tarleton wins a low-scoring, close football game that you feel like you just kind of let slip out of your hands. So you go back for the return trip this year up there to Tarleton State in Stevensville, Texas, and so you have to kind of buckle the chin strap. And I think in sports a lot of times, sometimes when a team plays their worst game of the year, they play one of their best games of the year following that. So I'm hopeful that that's what proceeds with the Lions this Saturday. They come out focused. They know that their season kind of somewhat starts from here. We got these first four out of the way. We got one of them, which was important, but we got 8 games left, and we got to try to go win them all and finish 9-3 on the season. It'd be a heck of a year. And like you mentioned, I think no one on the schedule the rest of the way is going to overwhelm Southeastern from a talent perspective. In fact, they'll be more talented than most of the teams I think they play. They just got to go out and execute, make plays, find a way to move the ball consistently, and score in the red zone, because that's one of the things they struggle to score in the red zone even against these good teams. And so even going back to last year, really, the red zone offense was not great in 2023 either. So they got to continue to try to figure that out, because if you can't cash in those opportunities, you're going to struggle against basically you can win every game and you can lose every game is what that really comes down to if you are inconsistent in the red zone and inconsistent offensively.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, kind of going back to the issues, you've got to find out who your playmakers are. Okay, you got to find out who's your trigger man, who's it going to be, and going back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, Eli, we know who Eli is, we know what he's been, we know what he's capable of. Still don't know. We kind of know Damon Stewart, the talent level, and obviously Tanner Murray, but they haven't played here. I mean, they've played, where they came from, but not here. And I don't know that we got a really good look at Stewart on Saturday, considering the matchup. I think once he gets again in another environment against a team that looks a little bit more like us, I think we'll see what he can bring to the table. And we're going to need a quarterback run element in this offense, because I think I heard a comment, Frank Selfo was talking about this weekend, talking about how the trend in college football is that teams aren't throwing the ball very well. I think he brought up Michigan, winning with 32 passing yards over USC. And, to me, it kind of reminds me a little bit of an old baseball saying that's been around way longer than I've been alive, is you got a hitter that's got a hitch in a swing. Well, that's technically not a positive, but if he doesn't hit, you call it a hitch. Well, if he hits, it's a timing mechanism. Okay. Well, if you can't throw the football and teams are having trouble throwing the football, but you win, that's a trend. If you don't win, it's a symptom. Okay. Basically of a larger problem. And, so I right now, this team's not scoring points. and they're having trouble sustaining drives. Now they are eating up clock. I think we're averaging over 33 and a half seconds per game time of possession, but what do you got to show for it? You got one win. So I don't know if that's necessarily a measuring stick. You're moving the ball 30-30, but you got to score touchdowns. And obviously special teams, you got to make field goals, but to score touchdowns, you're going to have some chunk plays. This team's not getting any what we call, significant chunk plays. You're getting some 10s, 12s here and there, 8, 9, 10, 12, occasional 20. But we're talking 30, 40, 50. What South Dakota State did to us on Saturday, we're not getting those kind of plays. So until we start getting those kind of plays that end up in the end zone, or we can finish drives in the red zone, this offense is going to continue to struggle. But I expect that to turn around starting this week.
Absolutely. Tarleton State comes in with a great wide receiver, great running back. I think the running back is one of the top rushing yard leaders in the country. They've played 2 Southland teams this year, beat McNeese in week 0. I think a lot of people watched that game in a pretty close football game. McNeese kind of gave the game away at the end to some degree. And then they played Houston Christian a couple weeks back. And so this is their 3rd Southland opponent in the non-conference. So, look, they're ready to go. They're going to have a great atmosphere. Todd Whitten is the head coach at Tarleton State. He was here last year, a guy Southland fans have been going up against for years when he was at Sam Houston State as the head coach. Went to Lamar to be the offensive coordinator after being fired from Sam Houston. So a lot of ties to this league, knows the league, knows Southeastern. And I think he's a guy who, is trying to be a part of building this program. Because, look, they've kind of spoken about it. It's out there. They want to make the move to FBS. They want to get in the next level. They've invested in their stadium and their facilities to try to make that happen. So, look, they want to use this as they're a top 20 team right now in the country in FCS football. They want to keep building on that. Would have made the playoffs last year if they were eligible. So, look, it's been a tough challenge, but I think a game Southeastern, if they go out and play good football, can win this game. Yeah,
I think Southeastern matches up very well with these guys, and we saw that last year. I think we probably more than doubled them in total yardage last year. They had a pick 6 or a fumble. I can't remember if it was a pick 6 or a fumble. First, I think maybe in the first play.
Pick 6. Yeah, first play, pick 6.
And then they had one drive. It was a short field. I think that was their only touchdown drive. And then Southeastern moved the ball up and down the field all day. Just couldn't punch it in the end zone, turn the ball over. They fumbled in the red zone maybe. And then, of course, you miss an extra point. And then I think chose to punt, with about 4.5 minutes left, maybe 5 minutes left in the game, and thinking you might have a chance to get it back. And they probably put their best drive together of the day to, eat the clock up at the end. So they were able to run the clock out, kind of like Southeastern did against Eastern Washington. So that was one that got away. And I think, it might have been the turning point in the season because, again, you were 0-3. And you thought you could be because you had the 2 FBS and you had the trip to Eastern Washington. That was the game you felt like you had to come home and win. I think Houston Christian may have been in there too. But you fell to 0. Yeah, I think you fell 0-5, and I think that was really the beginning of the end of last season's chance to make the playoffs because now you're 0-5, and it turned quickly into 0-7 before you got to the point in the schedule where you can run off 3 straight. But now we're at that crossroad again. You're on the road this time, but this is a better Southeastern defense. I had a chance to watch a little bit of the North Alabama game on Saturday with Tarleton, and they only threw for 50 yards. Victor Gabalis, the quarterback, he's come off an injury, suffered in the first game of the year, so he really hasn't played. They didn't really try to throw the football through some bubble screens and that sort of thing, but Kayvon Britton's a running back. He's kind of an Emmitt Smith type of a runner. He'll just kind of hunt and peck behind a big offensive line. Really, really patient. He'll skate back and forth and then find a hole. And next thing you know, he goes 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 60, or minus 1, 2, 3, 80. I mean, that's kind of the type of runner he is because he is so patient. So his runs come in big chunks. That's where a lot of his yardage came from. But I think Southeastern, has a chance, hopefully can keep him in check. And they have a very good wide receiver in Darius Cooper, who's probably as good a player Southeastern will play this year. as far as a talent. He'll play in the NFL likely. And just got to get some coverage on him and not let him over the top or out the back door if he gets the ball out in space. And if you do that, I think you got a chance to defend him pretty well. And you can't have special teams breakdowns. You can't turn the ball over. And in the offense, again, it's going to have to get the passing game cranking, which I think should happen a little bit more this week. And you got to continue to run the football. And if you do that, I think this team can go in there and win.
I think that sums it up, Mark. So Lions, the Texans, 6 o'clock on Saturday night in Stevensville, Texas at Tarleton State, 5:30 airtime on the network. We'll get you ready for that one and get it out to you guys out there in I guess, Northeast Texas to some degree, and have a chance to get the Lions' second win of the season, move to 2-3 before they head into Southland Conference play next week. So a lot on the line, but I think the Lions have a good chance to go play well on Saturday and win this game. So I want to thank our guest this week, Robert Alford, former Lion cornerback. Incredible career at Southeastern, incredible career in the NFL. Giving us some time today. It was a real pleasure to join him. And, Mark, always great. One more thought from you.
I got one final thought. If you're still with us, go to lineupcollective.com. If you're watching this podcast and you're watching it right now because you watched it all the way through to the end, that means you're a Lion fan. It means you care. It means you want to see this program succeed. Go to lineupcollective.com and donate. It goes directly to whatever program you want to donate to. You can donate directly to a player if you want. I'm not sure how it works online, but your donations don't go to some, charity that gets dispersed and there's fees and all that. It goes directly to players. So any amount is acceptable. So if you want to donate 10, 15, 20, 100, 1,000, whatever, go to lineupcollective.com, choose your sport of choice or where you want to direct the donation to go and donate, because we all care. We want Southeastern to win. That's the world we live in today. If you want to compete, you got to get players, and to get players, you got to pay them. And I hate to say it that way, but that's the world we live in. So lineupcollective.com.
Well said, Mark. I appreciate that. So we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully the Lions get a big win against Tarleton State. We'll talk about that one and preview the Southland Conference and have another special guest as always. For Mark Wilby and Robbie Roots, good night. Thanks for watching the Southeastern Sport Network podcast. We'll talk to you next week, but we'll see you Saturday night as the Lions and the Texans will take it on Strawberry State. And not Strawberry State, but Stevensville, Texas.
Line up.